In ZooBC, we want to experiment with more democratic models of governance. There's several projects that do this, and we want to be one of them. We think that's part of the future of this kind of technology. For the very first experiment, we're going to try to allow the node operators in the network, the registered nodes, to take a vote on what the minimum fee for transactions in the network should be. So this means that the node operators are able to have the fee move down if they think that it's too high compared to the token price, or they'll be able to have the fee move up if they think it's too low compared to the token price in order to kind of stabilize it. This voting that the nodes are going to do happens in two phases. It's like a poker game. First, everybody puts their cards down on the table and nobody can see what they are. And then at the same time, everybody flips their cards face up to see what everybody else voted for, because we don't want one person to kind of set the tone of a whole round of voting. If we decide to proceed with more governance features in ZooBC in the future, this is probably the way that we're going to implement them. In ZooBC, we allow the node operators to take a vote on what the network fee should be, the minimum transaction fee. And we do this with a kind of hoping that there's these two motivations that are going to keep it in check. So obviously, every node operator has some stake in the fee being high, because the higher the fees, the more money all the node operators collect. So that makes them want to move the fee up. On the other hand, if the transaction fees get too high, then nobody's going to feel the need to do transactions on the network. It's going to be too expensive. And because nobody's making the transactions, they're not going to be collecting any fees. So this is going to make them want to push the transaction fees down. We hope that these two competing motivations are going to help to stabilize the fee around a value that feels reasonable for the node operators and for the greater community. The most obvious thing that node operators would want to do is to increase the fee if they're serving their own interests. So they want to turn up that minimum fee as high as possible so that everybody using the network has to pay a high fee. The problem with this is that if everybody has to pay a high fee on everything, then everybody's going to stop using the network. And if everybody stops paying for transactions, stops using the network, moves to a cheaper coin, something like this, then they're never going to take any of those fees in the first place because nobody's going to be using it. So there's a pressure on the node operators also, if they want to collect any of that money, to remain competitive with the other kind of blockchain cryptocurrency projects that exist.